Alrighty, so welcome everyone to this afternoon session. Nice to see you again. Hope you had a good weekend. So, Sally, you were just saying something about today's
The hero's
mail and
journey.
post and the
Yeah,
hero's journey.
yeah, the hero's journey is sinking in deeper and deeper into my being. I see it around, I see it everywhere. I can feel it, I can sense it a lot more. So, yeah,
Mm,
it's going deeper.
it's good. Well, it's a universal pattern. It's really it's a description of the spiritual journey that everyone is on. So I think that's why it's an important model to recognize, okay, this is a process. There's a process in a human life, and this is kind of how it works. And I guess Joseph Campbell's genius was he saw a pattern that no one had seen before. He went, there's the pattern, and I recognize it, and it's a universal pattern. It's happening all the time for everyone. Any story that's noteworthy, where people, we all love stories as humans. But any story, the stories that really get us, that really inspire us, are always the hero's journey. Which is why Hollywood has cottoned onto this big time, and they're like, hero's journey, hero's journey. You see it in every movie, pretty much. Not every movie, but the movies that are seem to be the most popular, all the epic movies. You think of the great film franchises, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and The Matrix, Harry Potter. It's all the hero's journey. It's based on that, and people will watch these movies over and over and over again because the hero's journey story is repeated over and over and over again, and so it does something to us, to our minds, that like a normal, just a love story or something else doesn't hit that hot button. And so Hollywood's figured that out and gone, wow, this is great for film sales. If we model it on the hero's journey, people really, it hooks them in, and these are the best selling films and franchises of all time for that reason, because it's obviously speaking to every human being on a deeper level. There's something in us that then identifies with the characters in these movies and goes, yeah, because we see ourselves in these people, and then if there's identification, then obviously you like the movie. It's like, oh, I see myself in that character, and so now I live with the character and the emotions and the thoughts, and I can really resonate with that. And then I'm gripped. Then I watch the movie and I'm absolutely entranced by it. So it's a formula that's worked for, well, since he wrote his book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, in 1948. And since then, within a few years, I think Hollywood cottoned onto it, and then they started producing these hero's journey movies, which I'm not sure they did before that. If you watch some of the old movies, maybe it was in there, but not as consciously. Now it's like, okay, they know the 12 steps, they know the formula really well. Every script writer knows it, and they write according to that script. They go, okay, make sure it's got those elements in, because those elements are what make the story sell as a movie. And it's interesting how we can apply it to our own lives. You go, oh, actually, that's really useful, really valid archetype pattern, which is applicable to me and to everyone. And so it's a very useful model to understand, within which we can start understanding the process that we're in. I think that's the value of it. There's a process to this, and it's a universal process. And if I understand there's a process not just unique to me, I'm likely to have a lot more patience, a lot more faith, a lot more trust in the process, because I'm like, okay, it's a process. And yes, the challenges and the trials and the temptations are all part of it. And so I'm not going, oh, this shouldn't be happening. I'm going, no, it absolutely should be happening. That's how it works. Which then allows you to surrender more and accept more, rather than kicking and screaming and going, well, why is this happening to me? No, well, because it happens to everyone on the hero's journey. That's why. You're not anything special. It's just that's how the hero's journey works.
And does everyone go through it, or I meet some people that stay in the known world quite a lot, a
Mm,
little bit, and
mm,
I don't resonate with them. They don't go deep enough for me.
mm.
So will they eventually give in to the call, or do they just stay in that known world and then have another life?
Maybe. I think that, yeah, I mean, I know people who have been in the known world their entire lives, and there's no way they're moving out of there. It's like absolutely, fixed. There's no open. There's not much openness. But I think everyone deep down there's something. But the heroes are, the extraordinary ones who go, okay, I'll listen to the call, I'll honor it, and I'll in fact dedicate my life to this. This isn't just a theory. This is my life's journey, and I'm deeply committed to that. That's the only reason I'm here. That's the hero. It doesn't always start that way, but as you progress on the journey, you go, well, what else is there really? What else is there to do? Because then the known world really you recognize doesn't offer you any kind of satisfaction or fulfillment.
So the bliss can't be felt if you stay in the known world. You have to adventure to be able to get deeper
Yeah,
connected with the journey.
yeah. How can you if you're in the ego's thought system? It's just it's not possible. Call to adventure. So if you're just in the known world and you're very limited, I mean the ego is a very narrow thought system, which doesn't really allow. It can allow temporary satisfaction, maybe a bit of pleasure, but it doesn't really allow joy. Joy is not an egoic emotion at all. Real joy, bliss, what he's pointing to, a deep happiness, contentment, fulfillment. The ego can't give you that. And if you stay in the known world of your ego, well, yeah, by definition, that egoic entity, identity, cannot give you those thoughts and feelings. So you have to be willing to challenge it and go out of the known into the unknown, and that is exactly what the hero's journey is. Also known as spiritual awakening. It's the same thing. It's all about spiritual awakening. So whether you call it the hero's journey or the journey of awakening, or the journey of enlightenment, or the spiritual journey, it's all the same thing. I quite like the framing of the hero's journey, because you're saying, okay, this is a heroic journey, and to take this on requires what do we typically associate with heroes? Courage, commitment, discipline, the willingness to go the extra mile, to go way beyond what everyone else is willing to do. That's the hero. So if you take it on, those are the qualities you've got to call on, and you will need them to get through the challenges, because it isn't an easy process to do this for anyone. Because no matter where you are and what you have, the life is set up. The ego sets it up that it doesn't want people to escape from its thought system. So you might have, I mean, take the Buddha. He was a classic example. He had such a cushy life. I mean, he didn't need to work ever. He didn't need to lift a finger. He had all his needs would have been met until the day he died, because he had wealth. He had this, a position as a prince. But he just looked at that and he went, that's not any way to live my life. It's not fulfilling at all. And so then he willingly went out of that, and then the challenges really started, because he went out of the known world into the discomfort of the unknown world. But through the discomfort, he grew. So eventually, he went through the abyss. He was reborn as the transformed Buddha, and he got it, and he awoke to who he really was, which was the whole point of his journey. And then that awakening gets passed back to society in his teachings, which then have come down to us as this teaching of Buddhism. And so his life is immortalized because of the hero's journey that he took. A profound, difficult. That was not an easy journey that he was willing to undertake, and he did it not just for himself, but he did it for everyone. We all benefit from someone who really takes on a hero's journey. So society needs, although society doesn't welcome the heroes, society needs the heroes in order to grow, in order to evolve. heroes are the ones who move the society on and get it out of, unhelpful, stuck, dysfunctional patterns into a new paradigm. Those are the heroes of the world. And although society resists those, that inspiration is desperately needed in order to move that society on. So, that's the call for all of us. Will you be that person? Will you step up and, be the hero? Okay, Lynn's back. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, sorry about that. That was driving me crazy. I couldn't
Okay.
access it on my phone.
Okay.
Annoying.
So we're just talking about the hero's journey. Yeah, any comments, questions, thoughts on that? I mean, we wanted to discuss this today, so anything you want to chat about related to the hero's journey?
So I think.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, Lynn.
No, there was nothing. I didn't, because obviously I didn't hear the previous conversation. I didn't know if that question was to me or everybody.
Yeah, it's to everyone. Yeah.
So what I think I did is I got stuck in the known world, and although I was in a really contented place, I couldn't access my bliss. So I couldn't get to the next step. I wanted to safely get to bliss. I wanted not to have any nasty stuff happen and just get to bliss. And realized that I had to go, deeper to be able to get through it. So I was avoiding the abyss, the dark night of the soul stuff. And kind of, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was stuck in a holding position, like I wasn't going anywhere. It was just like hovering. It's like, I don't want to go to the dark place, but I want to go to the light. And it was just, it's interesting. When I look at that, I can see what I was doing. But then when I kind of let it go and like, all right, okay, just whatever, I'll go there. That's when the fastest transformations happened, when I just totally surrender and say, okay, I'll do whatever I'm guided to do, even if, obviously it makes no sense quite often, I'll just do it. Then that kind of allows you kind of go down that curvy bit. And as long as you've got enough momentum, you can get through the abyss and then come out the other side.
Yeah, this is the archetype. You have to go through it. So the ego is telling you, no, don't go there, because you want to keep it safe. You want to play it safe. If your life is sort of reasonably stable, then it's like, why disrupt the status quo? The ego's like, why would you disrupt it? You're kind of happy. You're quite contented. Why the struggle? You don't have to struggle, just kind of carry on, But there's something in you that knows that that's not really deeply fulfilling. That's the call to adventure, to say no. There's more. And even if, I mean, you're in a spiritual, you're teaching it, and you're in that domain, you can still get stuck in that and go, okay, well, it's kind of a bit bland. There's nothing. I'm not really, taking this on and diving deep and going into the dark places of my mind. It's, I'm still denying that and just trying to keep it kind of safe in my sort of safe spiritual world. And the spiritual world isn't safe. It ultimately is. Where you're going is ultimate, bliss, and that's perfect. But to get there, I mean, you got to risk it all. You got to put it all on the line. Everything you value, everything you think you know. Yeshua says at some point in the course, he says, this course requires that you question every value you hold. Every value you hold. Okay, wow, that's not a trivial exercise, is it? Every single value, every thought, every belief that you believe, he's saying, well, question it, because maybe it's not true. And the more you question it, the more you start to see, well, actually, it isn't true. You're living in a mind-created construct that is ultimately not true. And there's part of your mind that desperately wants to be free of that. It yearns to be free of that prison, and to break through into this transformed self, and really know who you are. And that's the hero's call. Will you listen to that or not? And sadly, most people don't. You say, how many people do? I don't know if any studies have been done, but it's the minority. It's the It's the vast minority. Probably a few percent of the population will actually do this in their life. Really, go for it.
I think what's coming to me is I think some people don't like change. So that's one stumbling block. There'll be people like me that don't want to go into the dark night of the soul, or I was. And then there'll be those that don't, that are kind of resistant to the light and the bliss. I think Lynn and I have talked about this before, that when sometimes you have an experience where you're having a great deal of fun and joy, and then something happens and you kind of link that fun with, oh my God, I don't want to go there again. So around that hero's journey, you can have so many different blocks, can't you? So many different resistances that, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. No, I'll just leave it there. That was what was coming up, linking it with Lynn and our past experiences. Do you know what I'm talking about, Lynn?
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't want to go there. You don't want to do the whole cycle of the journey, because there's something in your energy that tells you, oh, that's bad when you get to that really good state. Oh, that's when bad things happen. So you don't actually, maybe even don't start the journey if you don't want that end, slap or whatever the trauma was.
Yeah, well, there's many obstacles that are kind of going to come on the path, because if you really do this, your ego, all the ego's blocks are going to have to be looked at and overcome. So the challenges and temptations are the manifestations of your ego's own resistance, your ego's own blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which then come up in the course of the journey to be looked at and released. And that's how it goes. And that's why it's challenging, because you're facing your own self. It's your own dark self. It's your own alter, your ego telling you, no, this is, you're not the hero, you're this. You're limited, you're afraid, you're weak, you're a victim, and all these self-concepts come up in the journey. And it's uncomfortable to face your shadow. It's very uncomfortable. Very few people like doing it. Sure, anyone really likes doing. I mean, is it comfortable? Can you say, I like that process? I mean, it's really, no, you can't say you like it. But the hero says, but it's necessary. It's like, it's necessary if I want to get to the bliss. I have to go through this. So, I'll do it. I'll suck it up and I'll take it. And then beyond it, I know that there's going to be a shift. And beyond it, there is bliss and there is happiness and there is joy. But in the process of going through the challenge and temptation, I don't think anyone likes it. Maybe the best you can kind of do is, okay, I accept it. It's part of the journey. I accept it. I'm not in resistance. That's kind of the best you can do. And then the joy will come, afterwards. You've let go of that challenge, and then the joy can reveal itself. But in the process of dealing with it, when the ego is really knocking on the door, it's, it can feel awful. Really, like, no, what's happening to my life? It's all falling apart. And then the ego is going to tell you, well, scuttle back to your known world and just reverse the process and go back in your box and go back to how you were, because you were happier then. But that's false guidance. The only way out is through. You've got to carry on, say, okay, well, I'm going to go through this no matter what. To the eventual point, I mean, he's telling you, you're going through the abyss. It's going to be really intense. It's not easy. So when it arrives, at least know that and welcome it. So, okay, I'm in the abyss. Great. It feels terrible. It feels like I'm going to die, but I'm not going to die. It's just the ego that's dying. Okay, remember that. Have the awareness to remember what's going on, because that's going to keep you connected to the spirit that's trying to pull you through this journey. It can bring you out the other side.
So yeah, you were saying about bliss was different for you. Can you share your view? We started that conversation on the phone earlier and we didn't finish it. You said you'd already done the bliss thing, but now it hasn't turned out.
Well, I followed my bliss before. I think it was after I just split up with my ex, and obviously I was reinventing my life. And so I just decided to focus on what I enjoyed, and I made my list of things. And it was fine, and it led on from one thing to another. So the thing I like doing, I like knitting, So I set up one group, and then I was invited to set up other groups, and then I ended up teaching. And there was all sorts of things came from that. It was really, really good. But it did come to an end point. And I think because there are other things that come into play. So like the ego comes into play and says, oh, this is too good. So we're going to have to introduce some drama or stop this because, you know, wherever this could get too good for you to be comfortable with. So then something happens and, you know. So, but having an awareness now of this, I think following my bliss this time round is going to be different.
Yeah. I think if you have more awareness, it's going to help a lot. Okay, so actually this is the process I'm in. I'm much more conscious of it. And on the other side of the challenges and the temptations, you know, there is this, what he's pointing to you as enlightenment, transformation and at-one-ment is the enlightened state. Okay, you're you know, following your bliss, this present.
I did have that because I started doing the adult education as well. I started teaching, and I also got some training with that as well. But at that time, I couldn't hold a conversation with more than one person, and there I was, the class full of like a dozen people who were waiting for me to speak, and that was really taking me into my, you know, out of my comfort zone. But I learned so much, and it really helped me grow. And that was from following my bliss. So, you know, it was really painful at the time, but I had an awareness that this was good for me. And yeah, it's transformational. So I can see all of this is acted out, but I've also I've seen where I've limited myself. And now if you just allow yourself to be unlimited, limitless, then we can't imagine, can we, where this could take us.
Right. So that's the thing, you know, this transcends conscious manifestation, the secret, all of that kind of stuff. Massively. I mean, that's so limited. Okay, even if you've got an enormous, big, hairy, impossible goal, and you set that, you still kind of quite limited because that's all you can see. So you fixate on that, and you go, okay, you know, I want to be a billionaire, or I want to be, you know, whatever it is I want to be. You set the goal, and your mind fixates on that, and you go down the track. But it's you're in a very narrow range of thought and emotion because of that. You're still limiting yourself. This is saying, no, you're unlimited. Your mind is unlimited. You're open to the moment, the present moment, all right? And anything can happen. You're totally open. You can just tap in. You can download whatever you need to download. You can experience love, peace, joy, you know, consistently in your life. And so it doesn't become about, oh, I want to achieve this and I want to do this. It's just like moment by moment, I'm in this altered state of mind, and I'm allowing my experience to reveal itself, and it can be quite extraordinary. Miracles, you know, are happening moment by moment in your life, and that's totally awakened state. Just I'm awake moment by moment. I'm conscious of who I really am, and I'm open to, you know, the miracle all the time. And that I don't know how the miracle is going to show up. You know, I'm just open to it revealing itself moment by moment in my life, and so it becomes very present. Yes, you know, you might have things in your life, and you know, it might look on the surface like, okay, well, you still have a business, or you still have family, or you still have goals, but it's a different way of operating in those. It's not like future oriented. It's like, no, I'm just the purpose of the only purpose of the goal is it creates a framework for these miracles to happen. Okay, so, you know, I'm doing the business, or I'm doing my healing work, or whatever it is, and then because of that, I'm doing various activities and I'm meeting people, and that creates the opportunity for these miracles to happen, and for a very rich, deep experience of life. And, you know, if there's challenges to be overcome, then, you know, that's growth and learning. It gives me the opportunity to do that, to ultimately grow into the awareness of who I really am. That's the whole point. The point is not the journey. The point is not the destination. You know, none of that really matters. The point is, you know, what's the experience along the way? And
it's a nice reminder. Thank you. Because part of my thing was because I wrote, top of my list of things that I like doing that brought me joy was the knitting. And I started off one group. I ended up being asked to set up a group in the library. And then I ended up knitting for this company. They approached me. They came to me and offered me my dream job. So, and I would never have thought of even asking for it, or I didn't look for it, but it came to me. So
came to you because you listened, you went on a journey, and then it unfolded. And so, that's the thing with the hero's journey. You've got to go through this, and then opportunities come, and people are like, oh, you're so lucky. No, well, luck.
Then I discovered the secret and thought, oh, I can control this. And then everything went wrong.
Yeah. Because then the ego's hijacking, and it's like,
totally. So I've got to go back to that state of innocence where I was just allowing things to happen.
And you allow spontaneously, the guidance, and then it feels in my experience, it feels fresh, and kind of the word miraculous. It's just a word, but there's something really surprising, and there's something amazing about that process of something revealing itself, and you weren't expecting it. So life takes on a quality that it can't have if you've set the goal, you set the intention. Well, then it's not really a surprise, is it? And you now have an expectation. So as soon as you have expectation, what comes in is desire. I desire, and then I fear that I won't get what I want. And as soon as you do that, you move out of your bliss, and you now interfere in desire, which is dukkha, as the Buddha called it. Suffering. There's an element of suffering there because you're not just in joy and bliss. There's these other movements of the mind going on. And so it's subtle, but as soon as you jump into the ego's boat and you say, I want this because I think it's going to give me what I want in future, then you can't be following your bliss, because that creates a level of suffering that sabotages the bliss. And so the only way of really, genuinely experiencing bliss is this hero's journey. You're not going to find it in the conscious manifestation model of the ego. You might find a thrill, you might find excitement, you might find a temporary satisfaction for a while. But, Yeshua says the way you'll know if it was the ego is that it won't last. The feeling is very short-lived. You can only sustain bliss if you're deeply connected to your source, and that's only going to come through this process of the spiritual awakening, which the hero's journey depicts. Okay, so any other thoughts? Lynn, did you want to share something?
No, I find all this stuff confusing because doing my photos is totally my bliss. And then, I go out of that and it'll be a bit crazy. But then along the way, I'm having so many blissful times. Way more than I ever expected to have in my life.
Well, it's not just the photos. You see, I think people get confused and they go, my bliss is doing that specific activity. But it's actually not. It's your whole life. That activity is an opening. It's a portal. You might feel it more strongly to start with than that. But the hero's journey is all encompassing. It's not just the photos. It's your entire life. And whatever you're doing in your life, whatever activity, ultimately, you know thyself. You still are that awakened person. And you can experience the bliss anywhere, everywhere. It's not limited to photos. So there's a misinterpretation that following your bliss means, you're just going to follow that, what Yeshua calls your special function. And that's part of it. And that can be a way that your bliss reveals, and you can experience deep connection and joy. But it's to take it into every part of your life. This is universal. The transformation isn't like, I only transformed as a photographer, so only when I'm doing photography can I do that. some people experience that, athletes and artists and writers and whatever, in their chosen thing, they can experience the state, and then they go out of it when they're not in that. And so then they think, well, in order to experience that state, I have to do the activity. And then a kind of addiction develops. So I'm seeking the bliss, and I can only have it when I do that. And then they over-egg it, because like you can only do so much of that activity. So it's not that. And seeking the bliss is, you become again, that's desire. What this is pointing to is a state where you are it. You are the bliss. You are walking it. You're living it. It's your experience, moment by moment, and it has to be in the now. I'm rooted in the now. I'm feeling this love and this connection with my source that is pouring through me, and it's everywhere, because my perception is being totally informed by that presence, and then my life can become pretty blissful.
I was there. I was in that place so clearly. A few nights ago, the night before I started this job, I was running up and down the beach in Aldeburgh on my own. It's 1 a.m. I was running up and down, lighting up this thing that I was taking pictures of, and I suddenly thought, I am absolutely in my bliss. I was on my own. There was no one else around. And I was like, the wind's blowing on me. The wind's really warm. But it was heavenly. I didn't want to stop. I only stopped because it got to about 2 a.m. and I knew I had to be here the next morning. But yeah, I was very aware that I was there on my own, and it felt perfect.
So imagine a life where you could have that all the time.
Yes, that's what because it is that contrast thing. I still have the contrasts. I think I had one that later that morning, which is what's making me aware of it. It's like, how it's that perfect. It can feel that perfect, and that connected, like perfect. It is perfection, and then how it can go from that to something that just hurts my heart. So it's there is less of that, but still there's big drops.
Oh, so you're getting glimpses of this enlightened state on the other side, but there's still the challenges and temptations, because as long as you've got a resonant belief in separation, and that ego is still there, it's going to hurt. It's going to keep coming up. So, look, I'm still here. I'm still, forget the bliss, and it feels challenged. The bliss is very challenging to it. It likes the negativity and the drama. So then you can find, it can be quite extreme. Okay, I'm in bliss, and then a few hours later, I'm now depressed, and it feels really dark. And so these vacillations continue for a while, and until you go through this, you kind of it all comes to a head, and there's a letting go of that belief in your separate self. This is what the abyss is, the death of the ego. Okay, I don't want to be a separate self anymore. I don't want to be Lynn anymore. That's what you're saying, really. The separate self, the human self, the whole identity that you've constructed, human life, that's okay. That's all got to be looked at and let go of. Because if you think about your most joyful time, like on the beach, you weren't really Lynn, were you? There was no self-concept of Lynn there. We experience bliss when the self-concept drops away, and we're just in the moment, and we just
free,
immersed in the moment. We're free of the self-concept and all of its thoughts. And it's just moment by moment unfolding, and we're very present, and it feels joyful because there's no constriction, there's no limitation. The self-concept's not coming in and chattering, oh, Lynn, it's time to go home, this could be dangerous, all of that. It just goes away, and it feels very
There was no danger, there was no fear, no danger, nothing.
Yeah.
I even had a police car go past and make a perfect picture for me. It was quite weird. It was really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all just happening. One thing, I was very aware of it. I could see
You
it.
transcended fear. It's all that that entire negative thought system that the ego is, it's just dropped away in that moment. And so for you, like photography, obviously, and it's also you in nature as well, I guess, gets you into nature. So that's a big trigger for these kinds of awakening experiences. And then the challenge comes in, well, can you live that just when you're sitting on a couch? Can you live it when you're walking around a house, when you're in the the more kind of normal world? Can you still have a connection?
Yeah.
Maybe not as intense. I mean, in this world, there are going to be fluctuations, variations, but there's this underlying presence that's always there. So you could be, just ordinarily sitting on a couch, doing some work on a computer, chatting to someone, cooking, speaking to your boyfriend, whatever it is, and there's still that feeling that presence is there. This is what following your bliss really means. That ultimately that could always be there, and you can never, you never need to lose connection with it. It'll fluctuate in its intensity, for sure, but it's there as the kind of underlying presence, which is the self, the Christ, the Buddha, the awakened one, or the Christ self is there always. It's there in your awareness always, and that's what you are. And you never lose that. You're no longer vacillating out of that and going, oh, now suddenly I'm little self-concept again, and I'm depressed and I'm anxious and I'm fearful. I don't do that anymore. I'm just rooted in that self, the true self, the Christ self, the Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. So that is the self that's now living for me through, but there's no limited self-concept there, because that self recognizes that it's everyone and it's everything. That self recognizes only oneness as true. So that self sees itself in every person, in every blade of grass, in every living creature. See, it's connected. It's like it's the one awareness that is behind everything. And if you can live in that, you can only experience a state of bliss. Wow, I'm perfectly connected to everyone and everything. There's no separation. There's no darkness. And when these appearances come up in my life, I'm just not fooled by them. I go, none of that's true. It's absolutely not real at all. And I can't be pulled back into the separate self. That's the enlightened state. The separate self concept has gone. So that's where we're heading, which is profound. I mean, no separate self, no Lin, past history gone, conditioning, programming, all of that undone, and I'm just able to be totally present in the now, in that state of mind all the time. That is possible. That's what Yeshua is pointing us to, saying this is possible, but it's going to take a lot of mind training to get there.
Yeah.
Because you have all this, the self-concept still resident. For most people, it's, that's what they're thinking all the time. As you start to awaken, it becomes less and less so, but it still has these times when it arises. It's still got a hold in your mind. It's going, okay, well, we've got to get rid of all of it. This is a path that's not compromising. He's saying you've got to get rid of all of it. You've got to go the whole way. It's all or nothing here. You're not going to go, oh, well, I have a little bit of ego and that's okay because I kind of need that self-concept to maintain my existence here, and that's kind of going to look after me. He's not saying that. He's saying, no, you're going to get rid of all of it through this process if you carry on. And of course, that makes the ego very nervous. It doesn't want to, okay, this is, there's no wiggle room here. She's going the whole way. She's going to get rid of me entirely. And then it starts to fight. Say, okay, right, the gloves are coming off now because this clearly is a direct threat to my existence, and it's me or the Holy Spirit. That's it. So right, and then the fight starts because it's like, okay, we can't have this. So then all of the defenses come up, and then those are the challenges and the temptations you have to get through to go beyond it to the transformed, awakened self that people like the Buddha and Yeshua symbolize. They're just people who did it. But there we go. It's possible. You can do it too. They weren't anything special. They just had a deep commitment, and they were willing to go through their the difficulties in their own journey to get to the other side, which a lot of people are, most people are not, don't have that level of commitment. So keep going and recognize that the challenges and the temptations are there to help you to let them go and find that more bliss. Whenever you're going through a deep challenge, it's like it's an invitation to more bliss. Which, if you understand that, you go, okay, well, bring it on then. The other side of this, there's a deeper joy, a deeper bliss, and that feeling is so amazing. Well, yeah, okay, I'll go through the difficulty to get there.
So often I can see those challenges for what they are. But it's those times when the trigger is just too big and I've lost it, and it's like then I feel like that person who's not good enough and unworthy, and it's just like it's gone. It's like all those things I know have disappeared, and then obviously at some point I'm like, how did I lose that? How did I lose myself in that nonsense again?
Well, that's regular spiritual practice. So if you're not practicing regularly every day, and Yeshua's saying, well, look, every hour, just remind yourself of the lesson. That keeps you there. See, he's saying you're going to need to be vigilant here, because the ego is going to try and move you away from that. And if you don't have a regular disciplined spiritual practice, there's a lot of wiggle room for it.
Yeah, I
So
don't.
if you're not thinking about those ideas, so the ego comes in, it hijacks your mind, and then before you know it, it's been hours, maybe days, and you're down the rabbit hole, and you didn't have the practice to stop it when it started. So I'd really encourage you, try and do the lessons every hour or two, even if it's just a few seconds. You bring it to mind, you go, okay, take a breath, remind myself of the lesson. It's on your phone, so you can just pull up the slide and just read that and take a deep breath, at the very least. So that's maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds. One deep conscious inhale, one exhale. You remind yourself, you read it, and you're like, okay, you just kind of reset. Or if you've got a little bit more time, there's a 2-3 minute breath break, or if it's 5-minute one, or if you feel like you've got longer, then you do a 15-minute one. So there's, you could spend as much time as you want. Ideally, two longer ones. So you kind of set yourself into that for 15 minutes, saying minimum 15 minutes, because you immerse yourself in the frequency in that longer time. So that sets you up for the day, and it closes out the day and helps you let go of anything that's come in during the day. So that kind of makes sense, longer morning and evening, and most meditative traditions recommend that. They say early morning's a great time to do it, and then sort of early evening as well, because you've gone through a day and often you're feeling a bit tired, and it's a great way to just refresh and clean away the grime of the day on your consciousness, and open yourself up to the remainder of the day as a much higher quality experience. So if you can set those as like, okay, I'm doing that, those are kind of pillars that are supporting this new structure in your life. And then along the way during the day, you have these little dip-ins, which are the breath breaks. Okay, I'm just going to remind myself. You can get apps that sets an alarm for you, and it triggers, and you go, okay, all I've got to do is think of the idea now. Very simple, doesn't need to take a long time, a few seconds. If you've got a minute or two, spend a minute or two, do some conscious breathing, and then you carry on. But the breath breaks are key, because you're resetting all the time to that frequency. And if you don't do that, then there's unawareness can come in. The ego can come in, present you with a thought and an emotion via some kind of trigger situation generally, and then there's not the awareness to say, okay, let it go. Just use the idea to let this go, and you don't have to go down that rabbit hole. And so that's why he's got this detailed and disciplined spiritual practice of the workbook. He's saying, well, that's going to keep you in touch. If you don't have that, it's likely that the ego is going to have the space to come in and hijack your mind for periods of time, hours, maybe days, and you don't want to allow that. So that's why he's got the structure he does. He's saying don't go there, and you need to be vigilant. And the vigilance is the program that he's given you. Because all very well saying be vigilant. Okay, what does that actually mean? What it means is practice this as he recommends. Every hour, spend a few seconds at least on it every hour. If you can spend a minute or two, even better. If you can spend 5 minutes, even better. You know, whatever you can manage. But at the very least, just remind yourself. And that's the art of it. Because then you're present, you're connected, and there's no there's no space. You're not allowing the ego the space to come in. So try and follow. I'm giving you the breath breaks. Try and just do it as much as you can, and see if it makes a difference. Go, okay, well, I'll give yourself a week. Okay, let's do a week's challenge. Let's do this as much as possible, and see what happens. Is your daily experience different? Do you find less ego drama coming in? Well, probably you will. Okay, well, then it becomes obvious what you should be doing. Not for anyone else, not to please me or anyone else, for yourself. That's your own practice. So you stay in tune with the spirit, because you value yourself enough to say, well, I want a quality experience of life. I don't want to be upset and angry and sad, and that there's no point in that. That's an unhappy experience of life. Life's too short. I want a happy, joyful experience moment by moment. That's what I deserve. So the spiritual practice is what gives me that. So I'll do it. It's worth it.
Yep.
Just for a little bit of discipline, you can have bliss. I mean, why do we resist it so much? It's crazy. A little bit of discipline, and you can have ongoing experience of bliss. It's worth it, surely. But most people go, it's not worth it. I'd rather stay in the known world, in the comfort zone, and not take these risks and not do the spiritual practice, because it's easier just to stay in my existing habits, even though they don't really make me very happy.
No, I want it to change.
No. So every time you go, well, what do I want? Do I spend time meditating or doing a breath break? What do I want? Ask yourself. Well, I want peace. I want love. I want joy. I want bliss. Okay, will this bring it to me? Well, yes, in my experience, generally it does. It opens me up to that. So why wouldn't I want to do it then? Is there anything I can really do with my time that's a better use of my time than allowing me to experience bliss? Not really. What else is there really? And then paradoxically, the law of attraction kicks in by default. If you're in bliss and you really have this abundance, Yeshua called it the abundance of life, you really experience that, then all kinds of things happen. Synchronicities, miracles happen because you're in that field. And often you're then taken care of. You get, I mean, as you said, things just show up. You're getting house sitting jobs, and then you just because you're in the field, and then it looks after you.
Yeah, and regular client for reflexology. Yeah, it's all starting to come in together, as well as selling my pictures, and
that's how it works. Because I'm in the bliss, and it just that is an abundant energy. It's not a scarce, contracted energy. So you just then things tend to work, and money tends to flow as part of that. It's not really that you're desiring the money. It just comes because that's part of your experience, your expanded experience of life. So you don't seek money, and you're going, okay, well, I'll follow my bliss, and I'll trust that all of that's going to work out. I don't exactly know how, because we don't really understand the process. We don't understand very little, but it does seem to work, not just in your experience, in everyone's experience.
Yeah.
Quick question, because I got to go in a minute.
Yeah.
What happens if you think you're following your bliss, but actually things aren't then working out for you?
Well, you got to ask yourself, what does it feel like? What's your experience of life? Things aren't working out. Okay, so on the level of form you're talking about, things aren't working out.
Yeah.
Okay, but how do you feel? Is there an abundant feeling of life? Do you feel happy, joyful, or is there a block? Is there fear? And you got to be really honest with that. Bliss is open, expansive, aware. And if you find you're in struggling, and there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of contraction, well, then you're in the ego. But that's one of the challenges you then need to overcome. So then you're in this cycle, challenges and temptations. and it's recognizing, okay, well, I need to let this go. These are the blocks presenting themselves that are stopping me. And that might show up often as, seemingly physical circumstance. Oh, you don't have enough money to do what you want to do. These kinds of limitations are the challenges and temptations that the ego uses as triggers. Oh, okay, you don't have enough money. That's a pretty common one. So you can't do what you want. So then you feel the limitation and the lack, and maybe you feel the fear, and all of that arises, and that sabotages your bliss.
To my mind, that's just a contradiction. So, like, you're following your bliss, and then everything works out for you, or you're following your bliss, and your ego's kicking up, and things aren't working out for you. I mean, how are you going to know the difference? Because, like I said, when I followed my bliss with the knitting, I wasn't thinking about it at all. I wasn't thinking, oh, I must follow my bliss. I was just doing what I could to kind of survive at the time. But it led to so much that I hadn't expected, and to money coming in, as you say, not a huge amount, but anyway, it was a job. But other times I'm doing what I think I love doing and what I feel I'm called to do, and then all these challenges and temptations come up. So why? It just doesn't make sense.
No, it does make sense, because if you look at where you are, those challenges and temptations are exactly what you need to undo the separate self. So if you're really following your bliss, expect challenges and temptations on this cycle of the journey. If you haven't gone through the abyss yet, there's still this stuff.
How do you know when those challenging temptations are really just a sign that you're not really following your bliss and you're doing something else?
Oh, but you are. Any challenge and temptation, it means that you need to let it go. From the ACIM perspective, it's like, okay, well, let it go, drop it, forgive it, release it, let it go, use whatever language you want. And that's going to reveal to you on the deeper self that these things are covering. So if you're doing that process, then you're on your journey. Forgiveness takes you through this. So whatever you're doing, it's not necessarily a specific thing you're doing. Following your bliss, the hero's journey, is your whole life.
Yeah, I hear you. And actually, what's just come to me is it's the attachment we have to the bliss, then, isn't it? So where I didn't have attachment to where I was following my bliss before, then it was fine. Whereas now I've got an attachment to following my bliss because I'm wanting it to bring me income, and there's the attachment, isn't it? And then
it's not your bliss anymore.
Because there's an attachment to it, and I'm trying to control the outcome. So I get it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And so then that's another challenge that's coming up to be released. To say, okay, well, that's part of the ego's thought system. It's presenting itself. So, okay, I can see that, and I can let it go. So Course in Miracles, works beautifully with the hero's journey, because what's taking you through the hero's journey is letting go of the blocks that they show themselves. And if you're doing that, then I'm on my journey. So if I keep getting the blocks and I keep letting them go, and I really feel like there's a shift, then I'm on the journey, and that's I'm on the hero's journey. And I might be in the lots of challenges phase, but fine. We've all got to go through that. So I keep doing it, and that's advancing you on this journey. And eventually you might get to the crux of, okay, dark nights of the soul. It all arises. It feels incredibly challenging, but now you're getting to the very nub of the issue, which is the self-concept that you believe in. It's like that entire self-concept is coming into question. And you're looking and you're going, really, am I really that? Or actually, am I willing to let this all go and realize that I never was yet? I never was a separate self. I never was human. And I can let it all go. I'm willing to, step off the edge into the abyss, the nothingness, the void, and come out the other side and go, I get it. The reason why the Buddha said no self is because he went, you let go of a self-concept. There's no defined self there. Just the oneness, just pure awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love. Now that's what's guiding you. No separate self. Am I ready to go there? This process of letting go will bring you to that point where okay, will you step off? It's okay. I'm going into the void. I'm going there because I don't want any of this. I recognize just how limited and flawed the ego is, and I'm willing to take the leap. And you've done that over and over again by taking little leaps of faith. Whenever you let go, it's a little leap into it, isn't it? So, okay, I'm willing to let go again and again. So as I said, yes, or on Friday to Sally, it's like a microcosm, the hero's journey. You do it in a little incident, and then it's the whole journey as well. Just in a day, you can have a miniature version of this. In an experience where you've got to face a challenge and you let go, it's like a miniature version of this. I mean, so you keep doing that, and then it takes you on the bigger path.
Right.
So
So
I
I'm
hope
just going
that
to walk
helps.
around in a blissed out state now. Anyone's just going to think I'm mad, but I live in Brighton, so it'll be okay. I'll blend in. I live near a fire, so that's really, really good. Thank you so much. That's really helped something switch in my mind. That idea of just following bliss for the sake of the bliss itself and for no other attachment at all.
Yeah.
Is just
Otherwise, it's not bliss, is it?
No, exactly. And for some reason, I couldn't get that before. But thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna have to go now because I'm following my bliss. So I'm doing something else that's blissful.
Okay. Today. All right. Enjoy.
I'm being called to do so. I might be able to join tomorrow though. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and thank you, Sally and Lynn as well.
Yeah. See you soon.
Let's see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so let's crack on with the quote, shall we?
Can I just say something that just came to me from sharing is yesterday, I think it was, or was it this morning? Maybe it was this morning. I realized, oh no, I don't know when it was. You can think yourself happy. You can think you're following your bliss, but it's a mind trick, isn't it? That in your mind, you think you are doing everything, do whatever. And that's just another ego disguise, isn't it? That actually, if you're thinking, then you're not doing it. You're not in it.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's like, oh, you can get so like, oh yeah, I understand, of course, I get that. I understand the hero's journey, but it's like, are you actually feeling it? Are you living it? That's the question. You have to keep checking yourself and going, really? Am I really? Or is this still ego coming in? And because the ego is very cunning, we know it's going to hijack anything. Oh, okay, so the hero's journey. Okay, well, I can go along with that, and then I'll just kind of weave my way in there, and I'll put in some attachment or something, and then it just sabotages it, and now it's no longer the bliss. Just a little thought, like Yad said, oh well, what am I going to get out of this? I'm following my bliss, but I'm following my bliss because I want the financial return. Really? No, but then you're not following your bliss anymore. It has to be okay, I'm totally letting go. I'm trusting the process, and it will be what it will be. Genuinely. Otherwise, you have a problem.
It goes
to check yourself with that all the time. Really? Okay, so what am I really thinking and what am I really feeling here?
But like you said before, it's all about attachment, isn't it? If you're attached to outcome or whatever, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's subtle. I mean, the ego is very, it wants to bring in that attachment to the outcome. So it's a future orientation. There's a goal now, and then you start finding that you're starting to think about that rather than just being totally present. And it's very subtle, but it moves you ever so subtly out of the now, which is the only place you can experience bliss. And so, you've got to be very vigilant. It's like, oh, okay, so I've just moved. Just that thought, just a little thought can move me, can't it? From one thought system into another. It's a massive move, but it doesn't seem like it. It seems very subtle. Oh, well, yeah, that would be nice to get that outcome. And then you start thinking about the outcome. Oh, but have I just now subtly moved out of the now into outcome orientation, into future orientation, which actually takes me out of the now, which sabotages my bliss. And if I carry on this way, that's ultimately going to lead me to a very dark place. So it's like noticing those subtleties and go, no, just let that go. Restore my mind into just the awareness. Pure formless awareness is here now. I'm happy now, and that's all that matters. And I'm acting in that way. So whatever I'm doing is inspired from that place. Okay, well, what is that awareness directing me to do now? And I check on that and I ask. So
Yeah, what I've found is I've only just started doing it and I'll do it more, is deciding if I'm doing it from ego or spirit. So I was just trying to teach myself to do landing pages today, not something I want to do particularly. But when I checked in with myself, how do I feel about this? If I could tune into empowerment, this is empowering me to be able to do it myself rather than pay someone else to do it. I'm in spirit, and I'm in the now doing it. I'm in my ego. I'm saying, well, my end result is I'll do the landing page, I'll be able to share it, and then I'll be able to get more people on that course. And that'd be an ego. So just asking, am I in ego or spirit is handy.
Yeah, always. No, ask. Oh, wow. Okay. So Sally, I'm just going to have to pause this because very exciting. My biometric residence permit seems to just have turned up. So I need to go get that because I have to go sign it. It's only 5 minutes away. So can I ask, can we take a little break for like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes?
Yep.
And I'll come back. Because if I don't get this, they're going to go away, and then I don't get it. And I needed to stay in the UK. So
Go.
yeah.
See you in a bit.
Okay, so I'll just pause this, and we'll resume in say 15 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Never. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. I'll just pause the recording. Stop the live stream. We can't really do that, but that's fine. And Okay. All right. Hi, Lynn.
Hello.
Great. I now have a biometric residence permit.
Yay!
Hallelujah.
Whatever that means. Good.
It means
Permission
I'm
to
allowed to
stay.
live in the UK
Yay.
for the next 13 months or something. So
Mm.
it was being delivered, and that was Deborah calling saying it's here. Well, I'm just 5 minutes away, so I want to just rush around there, but she managed to make a plan, fortunately. Okay, so where were we? Let's go back to, let's have a look at the quote, shall we? Just going to start Zoom recording. Share my screen. Okay, so let's have a look at the quote. Can you read that? Shall I make it a bit bigger?
This is where I don't like doing it on the phone because I actually can't see a thing.
Okay, that's all right. Sally can read it.
Follow your bliss. If you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track, been there all the while waiting for you. And the life you ought to be living is the one you are living. Ought to be living is the one you are living. When you can see that, you begin to meet people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open the doors to you. I say, follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you don't know they were going to be. If you follow your bliss, doors will open for you that wouldn't have opened for anyone else. Joseph Campbell. Yeah, I do like that, because it's like, yeah, your doors are your doors. You're not going through anybody else's doors. You're not going through any predetermined doors. There isn't like a hierarchy of doors to go through.
Oh.
They are individual journeys, aren't they, for all of us?
Yeah, exactly. So it's your unique journey of awakening, and it's unique to you. So Yeshe talks about a special function, which is an interesting conception. Let's just find it. Where he says that it's the Holy Spirit's the kindest interpretation of specialness that's possible is this idea of the special function. Let's find, where's the link? Somewhere here. Mind training lesson. Today's reading. There we go. Okay. So we just need to go back a bit. It was a couple of days ago. That's section 6, I think, of this chapter called the special function. I don't know if you read it, but we're going to have a quick look at it. Rock of Salvation, and I think it's this one. Special function. There we go. So this is in the course, as everything is. It's a comprehensive teaching, just by a different name. He calls this idea of, your higher purpose, following your bliss, the special function. He's saying that this is the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness. Perhaps you want to read that, Lynn, or Sally. Number 4, such as the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness.
Do you want to have a go, Lynn?
Can I log into my laptop just to use the screen? Or is that going to cause feedback and stuff? Because obviously I can read it on my laptop, but I can't see it on my... I can't even enlarge it on my... Like I'm tapping on it to try and enlarge it and it won't... I can't enlarge it.
Yeah, the problem is if you're on 2 devices, you'll get a feedback loop. It's
okay.
It's a problem. No, generally not. I suppose if you stayed muted on the one, possibly, but I don't know. You can only
say again. Sorry, what was that last bit?
You had 2 devices and you were muted on the one.
All right, I'll just try that quickly.
You might find you still get the feedback coming through on your side, which will then obviously come through on the other because they interfere with each other. I've never been able to make it work in the same room. Okay, in the meantime, Sally, do you want to read such as the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness?
Such is the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness, his use of what you made to heal instead of harm. To each he gives a special function in salvation he alone can fill, a part for only him. Nor is the plan complete until he finds his special function and fulfills the part assigned to him to make himself complete within a world where incompletion rules. So, right, this is new to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like saying, I thought it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're connected, but this is more like, no, I don't know, tell me.
Well, what he's saying is you're going to be guided. You have your own unique your own unique journey. Okay, so you're in twice. Is it giving you a horrible feedback loop, Lynn?
I think I can bear it. It's better that I can see. So I'll try and turn the volume down on my phone.
Yeah. Okay.
That's cool.
It's okay for us. It's normally just we'll have. So if you're happy with that.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So the kind perception of specialness, the Holy Spirit or the remembrance of love, is saying that your specialness is such that it's the special talents, the abilities, your life circumstances, everything that makes up the separate seeming identity of you. And the Holy Spirit will perceive all of that as a means for awakening. So you have a unique journey, a unique part to play in this awakening, in the at-one-ment process. And that is your special function. Also, it's been called your bliss. Follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell said, or your higher purpose. And it's your path to awakening. That's what he's talking about here. So the special function is synonymous with higher purpose, and you could even call it the same as the hero's journey. Your special function is the process of your awakening, and it's unique to you. That's your unique hero's journey, because your hero's journey is not going to be exactly the same as anyone else's. It's got its own challenges, temptations, trials, tribulations. Everyone's journey is unique. And that's the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness. It becomes the means for your awakening to the truth that actually you're not different at all. But the process of the awakening looks different for everyone. But even in the difference, you look at the archetype of the hero's journey. It's not actually that different. It's actually the same pattern. Everyone's got the same pattern, but the experiences, your experiences, are gonna be different. You're gonna have a different content for that hero's journey. It's gonna be populated with different people and experiences, and that process can be quite inspiring. Saying this is the Holy Spirit's kind perception of specialness. Actually, you're on the journey of awakening. It's quite inspiring, and you feel like you're actually going somewhere that is useful. Your life has a purpose and a meaning when you're on the hero's journey, or you're fulfilling your special function. So that's what he means. And then he clarifies that he brings in the idea of forgiveness and the idea of the holy relationship in the next one. So maybe you want to read that, Lynn. Can you read number 5 for us?
Number 5. Right, bear with me. I've lost. From here.
Yeah.
Here, where the laws of God do not prevail in perfect form, can he yet do one perfect thing and make one perfect choice? And by this act of special faithfulness to one perceived as other than himself, he learns the gift was given to himself, and so they must be one.
Just one moment. I'm gonna because we actually did a translation of this. I'm just gonna pull that up. There you go.
I'm confused with that one.
Special function. So read it off here. Read the alternative here, where the laws of. Start again from the top.
Here, where the laws of pure formless awareness of perfect love do not prevail in perfect form, she can still do one perfect thing and make one perfect choice. And by this act of special faithfulness to someone perceived as other than herself, she learns the gift was given to herself, and so they must be one. I don't get it, sorry.
Okay. By this act of special faithfulness to someone perceived as other than herself. Okay, so we perceive in time, in the ego, we perceive that we are separate. We are a separate person, a separate identity from someone else.
Yeah.
But in our holy relationship with another person, we transcend that, and we see that actually we're not separate.
Okay.
Make one perfect choice. We see that we are one. Even if this person is really testing and challenging, we're able to forgive them, which means we let go of our own belief in separation in the situation. And we learn through this that this gift was given to us, right? The gift of truth, the gift of life that comes from this process of forgiveness or letting go. And so he's saying here that letting go or forgiveness is the only function meaningful in time. This is what takes you on the hero's journey. This is what brings meaning to all of the otherwise meaningless experiences in your life. And so if you think about our journeys, they are populated with people. The hero's journey is characterized by many interactions with people, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so he's saying by this act of special faithfulness, because you transcend the limits of your egoic perception, and you see that this person is really one with you, and you let go of the separation in your mind, then you see that the gift is yours. That love, this unconditional love, is really yours. And in fact, the whole point of the journey is to awaken to love's presence. If you look back here, what does it say here? On the other side of this journey, you get to at-one-ment, which is exactly what, it's the same word the Course uses. The at-one-ment. Atonement, at-one-ment is the oneness of the mind, is the recognition that I am one, not a separate self. I am one self. Everyone is actually the same self. And it's not just a concept, it's actually a felt experience at this stage of the journey. And you learn that in your journey, in the course of the relationships you have with people that can test you and challenge you. I mean, what tests you and challenges you mostly is people on the journey, aren't they? I mean, they're the biggest test.
Right.
So, the world would be easy without people. Yes, it would be very easy, but it'd also be very boring.
Dull.
You know,
Yeah.
there'd be no challenge and no temptation, and you wouldn't grow. So this is why Yeshua says, your quickest way to awaken is by living in the world, in these relationships with people that start off as special, and you transform them to holy. And that's the integral part of your hero's journey.
That's really weird, because the difference between the special and the holy, I just thought, this is how I compartmentalize things. I thought they were separate and they would always be separate and they couldn't change.
No, of course they can change, because it's
I've never thought that before.
It's a special relationship because of the way you perceive it. So the form of it, let's say, you have a relationship with Mark, okay? Special relationship. You've chosen each other above everyone else. You now choose to spend time with this special partner, and you, in your mind, you go, well, this is my special girlfriend, this is my special husband, partner, I don't know the details of the relationship. It doesn't matter. It's like, this is my special person, and kind of, you're more special than anyone else in the world. This is specialness. But that's all perceptual. It's in the perception of both people that they perceive it that way, and then they make it that way because that's the way they perceive it. And it's related to their self-concept, right? You don't just have a special relationship separate from your self-concept. Your self-concept is integral to that relationship. That's in fact what makes it special, because both people go into the relationship with the idea that they are special selves and they need another special self to complete them, because the special self never feels complete. So now we need another special self to kind of make us complete, and fulfill us. And we really think that's going to work. And of course it doesn't work, because you have to find the completion within you. You can't find it in another person. However, what you can do is you can see that they are as complete as you are. That's the holy relationship. They are not lacking anything. They are not separate from their source or from you. And if you recognize it in them, then you must recognize it in yourself. You can't recognize it in another and not feel it in yourself. That's the fundamental teaching of this. Of course, it makes complete sense. Of course, if you perceive another as separate, then you're perceiving yourself as separate from them. That's how it goes. And so the special relationship dedicated to maintaining the separation between these two separate selves can be transformed by each person changing their perception of it into a holy relationship. And that's what he's talking about here, through this act of special faithfulness. And so, with a special relationship, it might be really challenging, really difficult to let go and forgive, but the special faithfulness, okay, you will do it. And in that, you learn that you are one. You learn the gift was for you, that unconditional love is really what you are. And then you learn that forgiveness or letting go is really the only function that's meaningful in time, because it restores us to the state of unconditional love, which is our true self, and the other person as well. So as the means the Holy Spirit uses to, well, you read it, from forgiveness. Sorry.
Yeah, it's gone off my laptop again. That's why I'm looking at you back on my phone again now, so I can't read it. But this is working really well for me because I still get to hear you.
Okay.
But it's gone off of my.
Sally, you read it then.
I can't see. Oh, it's coming back on the screen. Hold on.
Yeah, feedback.
No, we're up to number 3, yeah? Letting go is the only function meaningful in time. Yeah, in time, okay. Yeah, so when we're not in time, we don't need to let go, do we? It is the means the remembrance of perfect love uses to translate specialness from sin into awakening. Letting go is for all. But when it rests on all, it is complete, and every function of this world completed with it. Then is time no more. Yet while in time there is still much to do, and each must do what is allotted her, and on her part all the plan does depend. She has a special part in time, for so she chose, and choosing it, she made it for herself. Her wish was not denied, but changed in form to let it serve her companion and herself, and so become a means to awaken from the dream instead of lose through it. There's a lot there, isn't there?
Yeah. So let's relate that to the hero's journey. And you can see that, this is, as Joseph Campbell said, it's universal. This is in here as well. He's saying you have a special journey to undertake, and at the end of it, this final stage is at one-ment. You realize that you are not separate. You are one. You're one self. You're one with your brothers and sisters. But while in time, you've had this realization, there's still much to do. Okay, so you return. The idea of the hero's journey is you return into the known world, and there's work to do because everyone needs to be awakened. And so the awakened person sees that. They see the need in this world. The only real need there is to wake up from the dream. And they return with these gifts, interesting, called the gifts of the goddess. So it's like these typically feminine, intuitive, connected, love. Those aren't typically masculine qualities. In fact, they're just of spirit, but they more associated with the feminine. So you return with these gifts of the goddess, as they're called here, and you bring them back into the world to help people to take the same adventure that you took, to awaken people from their slumber in the known world to the truth of who they really are, and help other people to take the same journey you've taken. And that's how the cycle works. And so you have this unique journey to walk. He's saying, while in time, this is your path, and it will unfold for you. If you're listening to the guidance, then the Holy Spirit will guide you through all of this to follow your particular path. That's your special function, and that's a journey no one else can walk. It's based on your unique life situation, your abilities, your talents, your karma, everything, and it's your hero's journey to walk. And there's no one else who's going to walk exactly the same journey. And that's what he's saying. Your special function is unique to you. That's the Holy Spirit's kindest interpretation of specialness, because it's specialness used for your awakening to the ultimate realization that actually, no, there is no specialness, and you're willing to let go of all the specialness. It just becomes the means for the undoing your special function and your hero's journey. So whether you call it the hero's journey, whether you call it your special function, whether you call it your journey of awakening, whether you call it your dharma, your higher purpose, whatever, it's actually the same thing. It's referring to this journey that you're taking to awaken to the truth of who you really are. And it's in the course, in the special function, just as it is in the hero's journey by another name. So it's universal. Okay, makes sense.
I feel like I could read that many times and hear many levels to it, but on a certain level, yes.
Well, so try explaining what you just read. Read it again if you want, and just see what comes. While in time, if you want to read the whole paragraph.
Okay. Here, where the laws of perfect love do not prevail in perfect form, she can still do one perfect thing and make one perfect choice. And by this act of special faithfulness to someone perceived as other than herself, she learns the gift was given to herself, and so they must be one. Letting go is the only function meaningful in time. It is the means the remembrance of perfect love uses to translate specialness from sin into awakening. Letting go is for all, but when it rests on all, it is complete, and every function of this world completed with it. Then is time no more. Yet while in time, there is still much to do, and each must do what is allotted her, for on her part, all the plan does depend. She has a special part in time, for so she chose, and choosing it, she made it for herself. Her wish was not denied, but changed in form to let it serve her companion and herself, and so become a means to awaken from the dream instead of losing through it. Yeah, what's really interesting for that, for me, is about in time there's lots to do, and in oneness there's no time. That's kind of sinking in more and more over the last couple of weeks or so, that it all kind of goes together, doesn't it? The oneness and the timelessness and the special function is all meshed together in my mind. Yeah. It's very interesting, the special function from this perspective. The way it's written is that we've always talked about higher purpose, you follow your guidance, but this kind of takes it to the next level. This is like your learning is in your higher purpose. It's not that you came here with one purpose in the humanality and the ego side of it, but you're here to awaken. So your purpose is to awaken. So your purpose in the physical form is just a form to help you awaken. That's how I'm hearing it anyway.
Yeah. The entire journey is there. As he says, letting go is the only function in time, only function meaningful in time. So what's taking you, what I love about the synergy between the Course and the hero's journey is he's saying this is the one thing that's going to take you on your hero's journey. The one thing you have to learn is to let go. And as you let go, that takes you through the cycle of the hero's journey to the ultimate, at-one-ment, which is interesting because Joseph Campbell used that term, at-one-ment, atonement, that there's, because there's a universal awakening to the oneness of yourself with all of life. That's the universal enlightenment experience. So the Course is saying, it's giving us a very practical methodology for doing this. How do you follow your bliss? Well, it's not that clear, is it? Well, what you do is you let go consistently as you go on the journey. And if you keep doing that, that takes you more quickly than anything on the journey. Failure to let go means you get stuck on the journey. You're not moving forward on this journey. Letting go accelerates the journey and takes you through it much, much quicker. So now you have, there's actually a technique here. There's a way I can do this, that I can follow my journey. Yeah, it said, how do I know if I'm following my bliss? Well, are you letting go or not? As the challenges and temptations arise, are you letting go or are you hanging on to them? How quickly can you let them go? Because that is the extent to which you're following your hero's journey and you're not resisting it. When you get good at this, you just let go by default. It's like, okay, well, it comes up, I notice it, and I pretty much let it go straight away. There's no holding on. But we don't, that level of skill and mastery takes some time. The challenge arises and then we don't let go. We get a bit stuck with it. And then, it takes some time to clear that and then we let it go. Well, the quicker you can let it go, the less you suffer and the quicker the journey is. So saying, well, look, just get on with it. Once you recognize what it is, what's necessary, just let go. In every situation, whatever's challenging and tempting you, the answer is the same. Let go of the thoughts and emotions that are blocking you, that are causing any kind of distress in you, and then you're on your hero's journey. Then you're on the fast track. Okay. And the ego just resists that. It doesn't want you to let go because it's trying to hold you to the known world and to the self-concept that it knows. And the letting go represents its death.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's kind of like saying it in the words I used to say, but I'm understanding it more deeply. So the revelation part, where some people get stuck in it, is because they don't want to let go. So if they practicing letting go will make the abyss last a lot shorter and be a quicker process. So the death, once you get to know what's happening, you're able to have that mini death born quicker hardly any suffering, and if you do suffer, it's all part of the game. But
Oh, it's really helpful to know this and have a framework. I remember I was going through this 6, 7 years ago, and I remember having this exact thought. It was like this ego voice says, "Jesus, Jono, this stuff's going to kill you." It was such a clear voice. I'm like, whoa. And then immediately, because I'd been doing the mind training of the course, it was like immediately the Holy Spirit counters that and says, yes, well, that's kind of the whole point. You know the theory. Yes, it's about dying to the old self. What did you think it was just going to be like a piece of cake? That's exactly what's happening. And so because I had that frame of reference of like a spiritual teaching, it was like, yeah, okay, I get it. No, I know it feels awful and tough, but there's an awareness there that, okay, this is part of the process, and I need to go through the process. And there's no other way. Just mute one of them. So that's very, having this kind of teaching is really, really helpful when you're in that in that challenging situation, because you go, okay, I get it. I know what's happening here. So although it's difficult, it makes it easier because I understand the process, I understand what's happening. If I have no understanding, it can all seem like, oh my God, my life is falling apart and this is all abnormal. And then people panic and they go to a psychiatrist or something, and they get some drugs to try and stop it. And that just stops the spiritual awakening. It sabotages, the process that they need to go through. Which, happens to millions of people. One of the reasons why we're also stuck is because we have this medical model that drugs people when they start having spiritual awakenings. It says, no, that's not okay. So now we need to suppress all of that and give you Prozac or whatever else to stop that awakening process from happening, which means they get stuck in a kind of spiritual limbo for years because they can't progress on the drug. It doesn't allow them to feel, to have the depth of feeling and go through the challenges and let them go. It just numbs them out.
And what I feel sometimes happens is on the slope down in the challenges and temptations, a person then tries to go backwards up, backwards around the hero's journey to get back to how they were, because they want to feel how they used to feel, rather than go through it.
Yeah, and then someone like that will go, oh, I need to go to my psychologist, I need to visit a psychiatrist, I need some drugs, anything to stay in the known world and not move through this and not actually go through the pain of the transformation. And then they just get stuck in some kind of limbo for years, some kind of netherworld of they're not really even living. They're just trying to maintain the status quo, and it's kind of a spiritually numb state, which is like they're zombies. And this is the medical paradigm of how and it's like, no, that's totally wrong. They should go through, should be helped. What they need is mentors and helpers and guides who help them to frame this and understand it and say, okay, this is how it works and it's okay. This isn't normal. This isn't abnormal. We don't need to drug you. You're not mentally ill. This is a normal part of human life. This is what it's about. Yes, you will go through times of apparent crises as you awaken to your true self. It's part of the hero's journey. So it's not abnormal. You don't need drugs. You don't need to go to psychiatric institution. You just need to be guided through this in a kind, gentle, understanding way. And in the traditional cultures, that's what they do. So you get a shaman who has sort of some special abilities, and they start waking up to them, usually in their early teens. And then they are, there's a process to deal with that. They don't get put on drugs. They get taken under the wing of the existing shaman, and he guides them through the process so that they can get through this. They can come out the other side, and they can be very valuable members of that society, helping others to awaken, because they then become the spiritual, the leader, the shaman. In our society, we drug those people and we stop them from having the awakening, because our model is a model that denies that the interior self, the true self, exists. Now, if you look at the integral model, it's a total denial of truth. So if you deny that you even have a mind, then what can you expect from a system like that? But a system that denies the inner journey, that denies this hero's journey entirely. It says, no, we got to stop that. And the only purpose of your life is to maintain some kind of reasonably happy status quo until you get older and you die, and that's the purpose. And it's just totally lacking in any kind of true meaning, isn't it? It's like, well, what's the purpose? No, you weren't born to live a life of luxury and comfort and meet all your material needs and then finally die. That's not why you're here. So it's a total misunderstanding of what life is really about and what your purpose is. And that's what underpins these systems. So you can't expect the system, if it's based on false thinking, you can't expect it to ever do anything good because it's false. Which is what Yeshua is saying to us. Look at all these egoic structures, the observed behaviors, the performance outcomes, the systems that we live in, and recognize where they come from and chuck them out. Say, I can't have any part of this because it's not serving my true purpose, which is awakening. If a system doesn't even acknowledge that you have a mind, because that's at the extreme of scientific materialism the case, how can it help you awaken to who you really are, which is pure mind? It's very obvious it can't. It's just going to block that awakening. So you can't listen to it. You got to discard all this. So then you become an outlier, don't you, in the system? It's like you don't fit in. Okay, should we go back to, there's a bit of teaching here on this. So Lynn, if you can read in today's inspirational quote.
In today's inspirational quote, let me just turn this down, by Joseph Campbell, an American professor of literature who discovered and formulated what he called the hero's journey, based on his studies of many seemingly different cultures, religions, philosophies, and spiritual traditions. He talks about the power of following your bliss, a term he used to refer to an inspired purpose that activates a flow of joyful energy, and what psychotherapist Carl Jung called synchronicities in a hero's or heroine's life, which another more recent psychologist named, I don't know how to say that, called flow, and Yeshua refers to as miracles in ACIM.
Yeah, so it's all the same. And what I'm pointing out there is it's like whether you call it synchronicity, that was Carl Jung's word for this miraculous, things happen and you're just like, how did that happen? Well, it's the synchronicity. It's the flow. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi call it. It's miracles, as Yeshua calls it. Doesn't matter really what you call it. It's like there's something happening in your life. There's a presence moving in your life, and it shows up as flow in action, or miracles, whatever you want to call it, or synchronicities.
Yeah.
Whatever term you use, but these are universal. The point is, there's not many truths. There's one truth, and all these spiritual teachers and teachings point to it in different ways. They've got different language for it, but it's the same thing. In Eastern teachings, in the Taoism, it's called Wu Wei. They identified this 2,600 years ago. It said there's this flow thing, and they called it Wu Wei, which when you're connected with the Tao, which is the absolute essence, the oneness, then this flow starts to happen in your life. And so they talked about it. There's none of this. When people say this stuff is new age, you got to just laugh. Like, it's so old. It's like it's as old as humanity. It's as old as recorded history. It goes back to these ancient teachings of Taoism, Buddhism, pre that the Vedas. People have been exploring this stuff for thousands and thousands of years. The spiritual journey is an integral part of human society. You look back at some of these rock paintings, and there was shamanic rituals in all these primitive societies. They had it was a big part of their life, the spiritual dimension. So it's a hardly new age. It's the It's the fundamental call that's been, echoing through the ages. Every human being is like, well, why am I here? Who am I and why am I here? These are the fundamental questions, and spiritual teachings are an attempt to answer that. So
It was
now,
all blocked for a while, wasn't it? It's becoming more and more mainstream and out in the public now than even it was, say, 20 years ago. And then probably for decades before that, I think that's why it seems like it's New Age, because a lot of countries and cultures blocked it for so long, or tried to block it.
yeah, it was buried. We went in the West. We went on this path of scientific materialism, which was really said, that only the external world is real. I mean, that's just an insane belief. How can you say that? You clearly have a mind. You can think. So how can you say only what you can perceive with your physical senses is real when you have thoughts and emotions? I mean, that's so obviously evident. You just have to go, well, what am I thinking now? What am I feeling now? Okay, so there's an interior dimension of my consciousness, clearly, because I'm thinking and I'm feeling, independent of behavior and what's happening in the external world. I mean, that is so blatantly obvious, and yet the scientific materialist paradigm says, no, the interior dimension is some kind of illusion. It's an optical delusion based on your brain. Your brain is producing this, which is physical. And so they don't deal with science, modern science. The scientific materialist science does not deal with consciousness at all. They don't know where to put it. And yet it's fundamental to our experience of life. So you've got this absolutely fundamental thing, and it has no place in the theory. Stephen Hawking, he wrote a book called The Theory of Everything, and not once in that theory of everything did he mention consciousness. Not once. How do you do that? It's extraordinary. How can you ignore it? It's like so obvious. Just because that's our foundation. We have an awareness. People have awareness, so surely that's the starting point. How can you ignore that completely and say, oh, we're just gonna focus on the external world? But who's perceiving the external world? You can't ignore the perceiver in the equation. It's impossible. So quantum mechanics is a much better science because it brings that in, and it says, well, the perceiver and the apparently perceived things are not separate. There is no reality in the absence of observation. That's the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. Just think about that one. There is no reality in the absence of observation. That is a spiritual statement. That could be in A Course in Miracles. So, in other words, the external world.
Recording in progress.
The external world is a result of this inner awareness. They are not separate. They are not separate. So quantum mechanics is another pathway into truth, if you want it to be, because it transcends the external paradigm, and it says, well, actually, the observer, the perceiver, and what's perceived are not separate, and they are integrally linked. You cannot separate them. And yet scientists, even though this is science, and they've proven this over and over again in experiments around the world, the same experiments produce the same thing, scientists still won't see it. So then that's not science, that's a dogma. Which is Rupert Sheldrake's whole thing. He's saying, well, it's a dogma. You believe in this blindly, and the evidence doesn't support it anymore. The evidence, in fact, supports a much more integral perspective that acknowledges that this is how it works. There's the interior and the exterior dimensions, and they both have their place within this world. Yes, we still have the external. So even if you don't want to go fully into, okay, there's just pure formless awareness, you acknowledge that there's these two different dimensions, interior and exterior dimensions, and you have to acknowledge both of them. You can't ignore one of them, because then you're completely unbalanced and you actually have no idea how life really works. So it's universal. I think more and more people are saying, well, yes, this is the truth, and there will come a point when the scientific materialist paradigm just collapses. It's a false religion, and I think it's in the process of deconstructing. with all this, the systems that it's made, you know, the medical system and the financial system and business systems and so on. They're all going to go because they're part of that thought system. And then something else is going to rise, you know, that's much more integral. And we're living in that time of transformation where it's happening in our lifetimes, which is quite exciting. Okay, so happy with the first paragraph? Sally, if you want to read the next one, but whatever you call it.
Whatever you call it, Campbell found that there's one universal story, the monomyth that he called it, of human life, which every philosophy, religion, and spiritual path shares. This monomyth is the story of the hero's journey, that the heroes or heroines of the story in these various traditions choose to undertake in order to discover who they really are, despite the obstacles, trials, temptations, and challenges presented by the ego or belief in separation, and the separate self-concept that is a necessary consequence of this belief. Okay.
So,
You know,
what's on that?
It's amazing, isn't it, how many times you read it, you hear something different each time.
That's how the truth works.
Yeah.
Or deeper levels of significance. So you know something's true has these deeper levels of significance. So you can read it and you can look at it and you can read it again, and then something else reveals itself. And then you know, okay, there's a spiritual depth here. It's not shallow. And that's, you know, the hero's journey, the Course in Miracles, they're all that. Which is why you can keep going over the same stuff and you go, oh, I get something different, because we did this 3 weeks ago. But it's worth looking at again, because you're like, well, the more you look at it, the more it reveals itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the bit about the ego is a belief in separation. I mean, I've heard that loads and loads of times, but it just sunk in a bit deeper just then. The separate self-concept.
No, it's entrenched. Here's the thing, that belief in separation is not just some theoretical belief. It's entrenched in your self-concept. You believe you are that separate self, and then you perceive the world accordingly. So it's not an insignificant, it's the belief that now governs your existence, your entire, what you define as your life. That belief entrenched as your self-concept, which is why it's hard to get rid of, because it's who you think you are. And now this comes along and says, no, you're not that at all. Well, you know, that's going to upset the existing self that believes that it is real and it is true greatly. And that's why it's so difficult, because you're letting go of yourself. You're deconstructing yourself, what you think of as you. So it's a path for the ego of self-annihilation. Of course it's not going to want that. And so he noticed that this monomyth story includes the same common elements. There's 3 main phases. There's the departing, call to adventure, leaving the known world, initiation, which is the challenges, the trials, the temptations, going through the abyss, and then the return. So now you've got through that, you return to the known world, but now your mindset is transformed. You're in a different mindset. And this, you know, as I said, you know, this story, it's been embellished over and over. It's been used. You can, any of these movies, you go watch the real blockbusters. Choose a blockbuster movie that's like been like a bestseller. Avatar, best, you know, most watched movie, highest grossing movie of all time. The Matrix, you know, huge film series. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. These are massive movie franchises, as they're called. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, I was going to say also. And they're all based on the hero's journey. Well, why are they so successful? Because they're based on the hero's journey. Because they appeal to something in people, and we like watching these stories played out for us because we relate to them. And so then if you break it down, any Hollywood script, it has these 12 elements in it. So you get the ordinary world. So it's a hero's journey movie if in the first 5 or 10 minutes you see the hero in the ordinary world. It's like, okay, so this is Neo, and he's at work, or he's at his computer and he's searching. So it kind of paints a picture of where he's at. And then, Lynn, I think we're getting some feedback coming through there. So if you want to mute yourself.
It is muted on my phone.
No, just mute it both ways and see if that works.
Oh.
If you're not, obviously unmute when speaking. So the ordinary world, then there's a call to adventure. Something happens, often seemingly distressing, to disturb the status quo. So let's take the Matrix as an example. There's a call to adventure. He gets a knock on the door. Trinity hacks into his computer, gives him the message. He gets a knock on the door. Follow the white rabbit. There's the call to adventure. So then he goes. He listens to the first call, but then, if you recall, sorry, pardon the pun. He refuses it. In the next scene, he goes to work after he's been to the club, and he's late, and he gets hauled over the coals, and then he's sitting, and he literally gets the call. Morpheus calls him on the phone and says, "Right, they're coming for you. Follow my guidance." So he's got to run out, and then he says, "You got to go out the window, and you got to get onto the scaffolding, and get out that way." And he refuses it. He says, "I can't do this." So that's a refusal of the call. But he gets another chance. Then Morpheus phones him again after his encounter with the Threshold Guardians, which are the agents. So they take him in. They say, "No, you're not going to do this. We're in charge here." But he gets another opportunity to meet the mentor. He goes and he meets Morpheus, and then he gets the final choice: blue pill, red pill. Famous scene, and he's saying there's no going back. You choose the blue pill. Okay, that's your choice. And this encounter ends, and you go back and believe whatever you want to believe. Take the red pill, and I'll show you the truth. And he says, but only the truth. So he's about to cross the threshold. So he goes then, and it's well symbolized in the Matrix, because it literally, like, everything just his entire reality just deconstructs, and he goes, "Whoa! Actually, what I thought was real isn't real at all, and I'm now in another world." And he's left he's unplugged from the Matrix, and he's now in the so-called real world. So that was the first part of that movie. Then he has the adventure, the initiation, where he has to go through his training. So there's allies, there's people who for him, and then there's people who are not. So he has Cypher, who's the enemy, and of course the enemies in the Matrix are trying to sabotage this whole thing. He has to go and approach the inner cave. So he goes to see the Oracle, approaches this, literally goes into a room. She gives him some messages, and then he's got to go through the ordeal. And he's got to fight Smith. He has to go and save Morpheus, go back into the Matrix. He has to save him in order to wake up to who he really is. And he has to selflessly be willing to sacrifice his own life for the sake of another. So look at the hero's journey. By this act of special faithfulness to one perceived as other than himself, he learns the gift was given to himself, and so there must be one. And so that's exactly what he learned there. His special faithfulness was to his mentor. He said, "I will do this. I will risk my life to save yours, because I don't believe in the whole." He didn't believe in the egoic story. I'm the one, and all of that ego stuff he let go of, and he said, "I'll do what feels right to do. I'll go and save this person that I love." And in the doing of that, he learned that the gift was his, and he awoke to his true self beyond fear. He had to face more the agent Smith. So he went through the ordeal where he was nearly killed. In fact, in the Matrix, he was killed. He had to die, but then he was reborn. So the third act is he returns. He's now the awoken one, and the final scene once he's gone through that, death and resurrection, he then goes back into the matrix. You see him as, now he's the awakened one, and he makes the call. The last scene of the Matrix 1 is he makes the call on the payphone, and he says, I don't know how this is. I came here to tell you not how this is going to end, but how it's going to begin. I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. And so he's returned into the known world, and he's going to awaken everyone. He's going to show people what the Matrix doesn't want them to see. He returns with the elixir as the one, literally the one. He's atoned now. He's at one with who he really is. He knows who he is, and he's returned with his elixir into the Matrix to awaken others. And so there's the complete cycle of the hero's journey in that movie, and you can see it in all of these movies. If you analyze any one of them, you'll see these 12 elements, which is why they're blockbusters. So I gave you a link to the book. If you want to go dive into this, there's The Hero with 1,000 Faces. You can read it for free, which was the original seminal work of Joseph Campbell, and we've just discussed it, I think, in some detail. So all good. Any other questions on it, on the hero's journey?
Not a question, but I just had a little aha when you said the last bit about return as the one. So the one is coming back in oneness. It's not that they are the one, they are the oneness. So I just heard that differently. So thank you.
Yeah. The Neo just symbolized someone who's awoken from the dream, which we all can. He was only special because everyone else is asleep. The red pills, as they call them, the awakened ones, are just the ones who've gone through a hero's journey. And so they are now outliers. They come back into the society, and the normal unawakened ones, the blue pills, find them challenging and threatening because they represent another world, which these people have denied. And as he said, as long as they're still plugged into the matrix, they can be used by the matrix. So the thought system then is governing them. Although we're trying to awaken them, they actually believe in the opposite. So they seem to be the enemy in this world because they represent the ego, and so we encounter this all the time. There's unawakened people who go, "What are you doing that for? Hero's journey? What's this nonsense? Get back in your box. Just live normally, whatever they think of as normal, according to their model of the world." And you can't listen to those people because they are the threshold guardians and the tempters that are trying to stop you awakening. So you have to see them for what they are, and not listen to them, even if they are close to you. In fact, that's often how the ego works. They are the special relationships that you have, and then people, they block you. They block your awakening. They don't have to. It doesn't always have to be that way, but often that is the way it works. Because the ego is going to use, it needs leverage, so it's going to use someone who's close to you to play that role, because it needs a big defense of its thought system in the face of the power of spirit that's designed to awaken you. So yeah, and your own life is this. You are the starring role. You're playing the starring role in the movie of your own life. That's your special function. Now, if that doesn't inspire you, nothing will. That's why you're here. So this teaching is not saying chuck that all out. It's saying, okay, you can embrace that. Yes, you have a unique function. You have a special function in time. You can embrace that. Just don't get lost in the story. Realize it's just a story, and the whole point of it is to awaken from the story. But you can journey through it, and you can live actually a very inspired life. Living a life like this, and we see it in the movies. It's a life that's rich, that's deep. There's spiritual growth. There's many interesting encounters. There's miracles. There's synchronicities. There's holy encounters. This is a life well lived. This is a life that's full and rich and meaningful. It's not boring by quite the contrary. If it was boring, then these movies wouldn't exist. These are the stories people like to watch, and because they're interesting and they're inspiring and they're exciting. So you can be that. You can have that that happy dream in your own life. as you listen to this this power of spirit that's taking you through the hero's journey. And one day someone makes a movie about your life or writes it and says, wow, you know, that was a pretty extraordinary life, because you listen to the call. And then it took you, it takes you. You don't direct this. The hero doesn't direct his journey. The hero says, okay, take me. I don't know. The hero's like, I don't know how it's all going to work, but I trust. I'm just going to take the next step and the next step and the next step and carry on until until I know myself. That's the end goal, is to know yourself. Okay, so no more comments on that. Let's have a look at today's lesson, shall we? Lesson 212. I am not a body. I am free. Let's look at it here. Look at our slide briefly. So, Sally, if you want to read that, and then we'll go into the specifics of it.
I'm not a body, I'm free, for I'm still as God created me. Or alternatively, I'm not a body, I am free, for I'm still as perfect love extended me. I have a function God would have me fill. I have a function perfect love inspires me to fill.
So which feeling into those? Yeah, which works for you better?
Inspires.
I like that. The perfect would have me fill, because there's almost like there's a kind of obligation there. God would have me fill some kind of. But this is like, no, I'm inspired to fill it. It's not an obligation. It's what I want to do. Perfect love inspires me to fill this. No one's forcing you to do this. It's a call in your heart. It's the inspiration in spirit that fills you up and says, yes, listen to me, because this is your bliss. This is where your joy is. This is where you're going to grow. This is what life is really about. It's not a chore, a task, or an obligation. So the language, can just change the way we interpret it.
The word inspire, for me, it makes me feel this lovely energy coming through me and into me, which feels really lovely. Yeah,
well, the word is literally that, in spirit. I'm, infused with the spirit, and spiritus from the Latin means life. Life, spirit, breath, it's all, it was pretty synonymous. They understood there was this universal, some intangible life essence before the days of scientific materialism. These words arose because they understood there was something beyond the physical, and you couldn't really, it wasn't tangible. So they called it the spirit. So now you are infused with the spirit, you're in the spirit, or you're entheos, God in you. That was the Greek version, entheos, enthusiasm. It's like the spirit is in me, it's filling me up. It's the abundant life that Yeshua talked about. I'm feeling filled up from the inside, and now that wants to express through me into the world. So the abundant life is just, I'm letting the spirit guide me and direct me. It's not outside in, it's inside out. It inspires me, and I'm fulfilled in this purpose. To fulfill this function, this is what I choose to do. I want to do this because I feel the inspiration. As opposed to, no, God would have you do this. Too often that's going to trigger people say, oh, okay, there's some kind of external entity, off-planet God, as someone calls it. Libby, who's part of the community. Some kind of external God that would have me do this, and I must now obey. And I feel kind of coerced. That's not how it is at all. So the language, just changes that. It's like, this is my own choice. And again, so in the couple of sentences, if you want to read the original and then read the alternative.
I seek the function that would set me free from all the vain illusions of the world. Only the function God has given me can offer freedom. Only this I seek, and only this I will accept as mine. Alternatively, I accept the function that would set me free from all the vain illusions of the world. Only the function pure formless awareness of perfect love has given me can offer freedom. I seek only this and accept only this as mine.
It's like two different worlds reading those two different things.
That's interesting. Yeah. So it's the same. They're saying the same thing.
Yeah, but the top one is words in my head, and the second one is an experience that I'm feeling.
Well, that's good, because that's why we do the only reason you do the translation is because it's going to give you a deeper experience, a deeper connection with what the words are pointing to. So, yeah, that's great.
What the session today's brought to me is this understanding about the life purpose. I mean, lots of people say to me, I really want to know my life purpose. And it always feels very external and egoic. They want a title, a name, a job, a thing they've come here to do. And I always used to say, no, just stay in the moment and follow the guidance moment by moment. But today's session has taken it the next step and helped me see it even more deeply. Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure. No, your purpose is to know yourself, and you know yourself through your journey. It's an experiential journey. You can't come to know yourself theoretically. It's a journey you walk. Morpheus said in the Matrix, he said there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. So I know you can study the hero's journey till the cows come out. Oh yeah, I know the hero's journey. I've studied the theory, I've read the books. And then you're a theologian. Then you're like, it's intellectual, concepts, ideas. There are people like this. Yes, I understand it all, but I'm not living it. So often you find them in academic environments. They'll teach it. Theologian, I'll teach it because I understand intellectually. But to live it, to actually walk the path, live it, experience it. Now, someone teaching from that place becomes the spiritual master, because they go, well, it's not just theory. I've walked the path, I've lived this, and I know that it's true from my own experience, and I can share that experience. And now that's teaching on another level, isn't it? Because someone who listens to that is going to go, wow, that's really authentic. I can feel that person really knows. They know what they're talking about because it's coming from experience, not just from book learning. And this is the difference really between religion and a spiritual path. Religion is, okay, you have a dogma, you have a theory, you study the theory, you go to the theology college, and you can study it for years, and then you become a priest or a rabbi or an imam, and you can spout it. You speak the theory. But do you know it in your heart? And unless you've had some kind of spiritual transformation and you've undertaken your own hero's journey, you won't really know it in your heart. It's just words, it's concepts. You're dealing with conceptual thought, not the actual experience of, okay, so I'm actually feeling this, experiencing it, because then you know, and then you can teach. You don't need to go to theology school for years and years and study all of this. You just know it. It comes. People say, well, where did you do your training? I didn't do it. It's my whole life is the training. It just no one teaches a degree in this stuff. You can't get a degree in it. It's your whole life. Your life is the degree that then leads to the flow. It just comes, and it just pours out of you, and you're like, I can't stop it. It's just coming and coming and coming. It's not something I have to study or rehearse, or it's just there. So it's this ineffable well of spirit just arising. And it wants to arise in everyone. That's the thing. It's not limited to one person. Everyone can tap into that if they're willing to undertake their own hero's journey, overcome the blocks to it, which is really good news. We can all do it if we choose to. Right now, starting today, anyone can say, okay, I'm up for this. That's when your hero's journey starts. Okay, so any thoughts on the teaching, on what he's saying here in these few lessons, in these few sentences?
No, nothing for me.
He's saying only this function, to summarize, only this function of awakening, only following your hero's journey will bring you freedom. And you seek only this and you accept only this. That's the entire purpose for your life. You don't accept any other functions. Salvation is something you must accept. Awakening as your purpose entirely or not at all. That's, there's no other purpose. If you accept other purposes, then that's going to sabotage the awakening, because you now have something else that's equally or more important. And then within that framework, that doesn't mean you lead a boring life. So everything, every experience that comes into your life fits within that framework of awakening. It's all part of the journey. So it's an all-encompassing. It's a model that will allow you to explain everything in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's like, okay, this explains it. I understand now why I experienced that, because it was all for my awakening. So then how can you be resentful? How can you be angry? So you see how this hero's journey goes hand in glove with forgiveness or letting go. The two work beautifully.
Yeah.
Which is why he says, letting go is your only function here. So letting go takes you on the journey. It helps this journey to unfold, quickens the journey, and then as you go on the journey more and more, you get more opportunities to let go. Those are the challenges and the temptations. So your purpose is bound up with the letting go process. So yeah, if someone's asking, well, what's my higher purpose? I want some ego purpose. You go, just focus on letting go right now of whatever's showing up for you. And if you keep doing that, your journey is going to unfold moment by moment, perfectly, exactly as it should do. And you might find at some point people go, oh, wow, you lead a really extraordinary life and you've done all this stuff. You know, well, I didn't really intend to do that. It just kind of unfolded as I went. So, yeah. All right. So let's do a meditation on this. Is there anything else?
Lovely.
Any more thoughts? I'm not a body. I'm free. If I'm still as God created me, or as perfect love extended me. How does that sit today with you?
Good for me. Feels like it flows through me more now. Before I was trying to get it in my head and as an experience, but now I feel it more.
Yeah, it's feeling into it.
It feels like the love is just here more, but not in the body, kind of just here.
Well, this is thanks for that post on the weekend. This is the refuge. The safety lies in your true self. I am still as this created me, as this extended me. I am still that loving presence. It has not changed. And I will always be that. So now you take refuge in your true self, in that knowledge. It doesn't matter what's happening in the dream, the self remains as it always has been. And there's the refuge. So it was interesting you tapping into that. I wrote a bit of a post about it. Did you read it?
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's almost like you open up to a field. So that Way of the Peaceful Warrior is tapping into the Buddhist field. It's basically mindfulness based on Buddhist principles. Was what was being taught there. So then you tap in, and it's like that. Although you didn't know it, that was a Buddhist prayer. I take refuge in myself. That's when I went on the Vipassana retreat. When you start the retreat, they make you say 3 times, I take refuge in Dhamma. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Sangha. And you say that 3 times. Because you're taking refuge in the truth. And you're setting that intention. So, we're doing the same thing in the Course in Miracles. I take refuge in the truth, the ultimate truth of who I really am. And I take refuge in the process of awakening. Buddha is the awakening process. Dhamma is the truth. Buddha is the awakened one. So I take refuge in this process of awakening. And I understand that it's a process. And the Sangha is the spiritual community and the practices that are helping you. So I take refuge in that. So every day you come here into the room, you take refuge here. It's a refuge, isn't it, from the outside world? To restore yourself, to connect with the truth, and restore your mind into the truth, and be vigilant against and protect yourself against all of the egoic stuff that goes on in this world. And that's what the spiritual practice and the spiritual path do. So you kind of tapped into that, I think, in the ether, in the quantum field, and sort of brought it in, and that's why it's coming into your mind. I take refuge in the truth, which is essentially what you're doing whenever you do spiritual practice. I take refuge in the truth, in the inner self. I'm willing to let go of the outer perception, the perceptions of an external world, and just go there and rest there. So, shall we do that for 20 minutes or so? Do a meditation on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So
You may not see me again today.
okay.
Yeah. I might log off straight after the meditation.
You're gonna log off. Okay.
I'm going to fall asleep.
You're gonna fall asleep. Okay. Well, sit up. That'll help.
Oh,
If you lie down,
restless legs.
if you
Oh,
lie down, it's almost guaranteed you fall asleep. So
oh,
that's why they say sit up in meditation.
oh.
I try sitting up, and then after the meditation, if you want to lie down, then just do that.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
All right. So just putting yourself on mute. So sitting comfortably, feet shoulder width apart, back straight, cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes, and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Breathing in, connecting with your heart space, drawing the energy into your heart. And on up into the crown of your head, pausing at the top of the inhale, smile. And just observe what's going on in your mind, any thoughts, any emotions, sensations related to those. Notice anything that feels at all negative, limiting, contracted, constricting, just unpleasant, really. Breathe into that. So you're breathing in awareness, spacious awareness, pure formless awareness, otherwise known as light. If you visualize light, you could imagine light flowing into every pore, every cell of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being, or just feel this light presence, the lightness of beingness infusing you. And to the lightness of being, you go. The awareness of light is with you. And you remind yourself that I am not a body. I am free in this awareness. Or I am still as God or pure formless awareness of perfect love extended me. I'm still as this loving presence extended me. And so you exhale and just blow away any of this negativity. It's just clouds of thought and emotion that cloud over the pure formless awareness of perfect love that you are. Pure formless awareness in our cloud analogy is the blue sky, and perfect love is the light of your source shining through that, blazing through this pure formless awareness in your mind, lightening up your mind, and you feel happy and peaceful, loving and joyful in this awareness. It's a natural feeling when you're in this awareness. So feel that now. Breathing in, breathe this presence in. to every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being. Is in the light of this true awareness. Say, I have a function that God or perfect love would have me fill. Perfect love inspires me to fill. I'm inspired to fill this function. That function is forgiveness or letting go, and that function takes you on your hero's journey of awakening. Function is to awaken in this world from the dream of form, of time and space, of being a separate self, limited to a body, limited to suffering and sickness and death. You're not limited to that. You are eternal. You are the pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is arising in your mind right now. So just be aware of that presence. Sink into it, let it arise deeply and fully. Just breathe to maintain this empty, open awareness, just breathing in and out through your nose, noticing. The air flowing in and the air flowing out. The stomach rising and the stomach falling. And you let this function of perfect love fill you up from the inside out. Breathe it into every pore and every cell, every muscle of your body. And you feel the life essence that you are. It enlivens every cell in your body. Without this life essence, cells would have no life. Your body could not exist without the fundamental life essence, or spirit, as they call it in the ancient Latin. Spiritus, life, breath. Very essence of life. So feel the spirit in you now. Feel inspired. Breathe it in to every pore, every cell, every muscle, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is infused with this life essence. There's nowhere it's not. It's complete and whole. It underlies your body. It underlies all of your sense perceptions. It is the very foundation of your awareness, the essence without which you would have no life. Hence the life essence. To say to yourself, I have a function, this life essence, this perfect life, which is also called perfect love, pure formless awareness of perfect love. Don't get hung up on the names. These are just pointers. Feel it, rather. Feel the essence that inspires you. It fills you up from the inside out. You are inspired to fill it. So there's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. Nothing else to think about. Feel the inspiration in you. And sink into that. Let the feeling arise, immerse yourself in it, don't resist it, just allow it. You are this presence, you are the presence of perfect love. It fills you up when you allow it to, because it is you. It's you, in fact, your whole mind, your whole being is there, and anything else that seems to resist it must then be false. So if you notice anything else arising, just breathe in the spirit, say, I have a function, perfect love inspires me to fill. I accept only this function that would set me free from all the vain illusions of the world. Only the function that pure formless awareness of perfect love has given me can offer me freedom. And so I seek only this and accept only this function as mine, not sometime in the past or future, but right now. You accept this function when you let go of anything that blocks the awareness of love's presence. It's that simple. So any blocks you might notice, you become aware of them, breathe into them. Imagine you breathing in light, pure formless awareness, which is light, which is perfect love. These are just pointers to the intangible essence that's really beyond words. But try and feel it. Accept it in. Don't resist it. Surrender to it. This is what surrender to God means. Just surrender to this presence. Let it encompass your entire awareness. It is your entire mind right now. There's nothing else to be aware of, nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, nothing else to think about. Just surrender into it. The next few minutes of deep silence. If any thoughts arise in this deep silence to seemingly disturb it, just casually observe them. Recognize they're just clouds. It's coming and going, shifting and changing, just drifting by. And then go into the nothingness they really are. Blow them away with the breeze of your breath. And go like clouds and just sinking inwards into the pure formless awareness of perfect love, the blue sky. Just pure, simple, just an awareness. There's a lightness that shines through it. Just give your mind to this experience and this experience alone. Another couple of minutes of deep, contemplative silence. So just coming back to an awareness of the body and the breath and the senses and the world, and on the count of 3, hands open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Smile. Observe your mind, scan your mind, notice thoughts, emotions going on there. Is there anything that is not love, not pure formless awareness? Observe it and be willing to let it go. One more time with the help of your breath. So you exhale, blow it all away. It helps you imagine it's like a cloud just leaving you, dark cloud. egoic thought and emotion that's going, gone. So breath, pull the lower stomach into the spine to expel the last remaining air out. Notice the air flowing out, the chest and stomach suck back in. And on the count of 2, just rest for a few moments in awareness of the body. Notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair and your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching. And there's a subtle taste in your mouth, smell in your nose. Notice that. Notice what you're hearing. Surrounding environment. Seeing all these things in this very still, calm, and surrendered state. Without judgment, there's just this awareness shining through. So stay anchored in this awareness. Notice it now. Set the intention to stay there. To help you do that, practice today's lesson frequently. Even just for a few seconds, reminding yourself that I have a function, perfect love, inspires me to fill, and I am not a body, I am free. I'm still as perfect love, extends me. It needs only take a few seconds to say that to yourself, take a conscious breath, and let go of anything that's blocking that awareness. It might take as little as 10 or 20 seconds. If you have a bit more time, listen to the 3-minute breath break I sent you, or the 6-minute one, and there's a longer meditation which you can listen to this evening to top you up, which I'll post after this. So it'll help you to stay connected, stay inspired in this flow of love, which is what I wish for you for the rest of the afternoon and evening. So it is said, so it is done. On the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, observing the various objects in the room from this very clear, calm state of awareness. Let your eyes randomly rest on something for a second or 2. Notice that awareness is present. Move on, look at something else. Notice it's present in something else. And you notice then that the awareness is the same. It's all the same awareness. Nothing different, nothing separate. And this teaches you that only this awareness is true, that you are this awareness. You are the pure formless awareness, perfect love, and realizing that is your only function. So the function that this awareness inspires you to feel, to be itself, to recognize yourself as itself and experience yourself as that only. So I hope this session has helped you to do that in a deeper way, and that it inspires you to carry on doing that for the rest of the afternoon and evening. And thank you for joining. Namaste. Which means the divine love in me acknowledges and honors that same loving presence or awareness in you. Okay, let's say bye to Lynn. Lynn's probably gone to sleep. Are you there?
Just.
Okay. How was that? Did you go quite deep?
I did fall asleep, to be fair, for probably the last, I don't know, last few minutes at least. But I thought I'd do it again later.
Yeah, well, I just posted the recording to the group so you can listen to the same one if you like.
Yeah.
The last recording out of 3, 22 minutes, 34 seconds. So listen to it sometime this evening. And I'd really encourage you, Lynn, if you can get into a habit of doing spiritual practice regularly,
Yes, because I'm not.
Morning,
So
yeah,
definitely
morning, meditation in the morning, meditation in the evening, and then in between, as many times as you can, remember. And there's many apps. You can get apps that will remind you. They'll put a reminder on your phone.
Because when you were saying that, I thought there's an insight timer one or something. Then I thought of that when you were talking about it earlier.
Yeah. That will just, every hour, every 2 hours, you pop it up and you go, okay. And then, on Telegram, you've got the lesson, so you can just look at it. You could bring up the slide and you could just read it, or you can listen to a breath break, which is immediately below it. You tap that and you listen. And so the idea is it's just part of your day. It's like, okay, well, I'm doing this and it's integrated into my day, and I do it for a few minutes. You refresh yourself and then you carry on.
Yeah.
That way you keep yourself in tune with the spirit, and when the ego comes calling, which it will, you're vigilant, then use it. You go, okay, right, awareness, my lesson's there. Okay, now's the time I need to do a breath break. Just clear the energy.
Get back into it quicker.
Yes, so that you don't, because what it's trying to do is get you to go out of it.
Yeah.
In quite a deep way. So now you get stuck in a state of depression or anger or frustration or anxiety or whatever it is. And it's more difficult once it's got established as a full-blown thought and emotion to get out of it. It's a pattern now. And now you can get stuck in that for a longer time, for sometimes hours or days.
Yeah.
Whereas if you catch it as it happens, okay, hang on, thought, emotion, it's developing. I'm vigilant of that, I'm aware. Okay, well, I have the antidote. I've got a lesson, a mind training lesson, and I've got these recordings that are there for precisely this reason. So let me do it. And so then you get good at managing your mental and emotional state. That's what it's all about.
Okay.
Life's about mental and emotional state management. You get good at that, everything else will flow. Your bliss will flow. It's just amazing what happens when you do that. So
okay, I will.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon.